Our last graph is a tangent graph. We do need to be a little bit careful here. We'll start off by finding its asymptotes, though, by taking whatever's inside of our parentheses inside the tangent and setting it equal to the original two asymptotes and figuring out where they go. So we'll start out with our vertical asymptotes like normal. And so we'd start out with what's inside the parentheses, which is the x over 3 plus pi over 2 equals, and the x over 3 plus pi over 2 equals. What are the two original asymptotes for tangent? They're not pretty. They're negative pi over 2 and positive pi over 2. Now, I see tons and tons of fractions. I see 3s and 2s and everything. I'm not liking that. So if you're one of those people who does not like fractions, let's get rid of all of them by multiplying by an LCD. Well, least common denominator between 2 and 3 is 6. So I'm going to multiply each and every piece on both of these by 6, just so I'm not dealing with the fractions. So on this first one, I've got 6 over 3 now, which is 2, and I've still got my x. Plus, on my next one, I've got 6 over 2, which is, again, 3, in front of that pi that was there. Equals, last one, I've got 6 over 2, which is 3. Be careful, I also had a negative and an x here, or a negative and a pi here, so a negative 3 pi. Now, continuing to solve this, we just solve it like a normal equation. It's just our fractions are now gone, which is really nice. So I'll subtract 3 pi from both sides. And let's see what that gets me. That leaves me with a 2x and a negative 6 pi on the right. Because negative 3 pi and negative 3 pi is negative 6 pi. Last step would be to divide both sides by 2, which would give me that x equals a negative 3 pi. That's my first asymptote. Now I still need to figure out what my second asymptote is going to be for my tangent graph, and I've got 6 over 3, because again I multiplied everything by 6 to get rid of the fractions. Well, 6 divided by 3 is going to give me a 2 in front of my x. Plus, the next one, 6 divided by 2 is going to give me a 3 in front of my pi. Equals, on this next one, we've got a 6 divided by 2, which is a 3 in front of my, on the right-hand side, it was a pi that I had, so a 3 in front of my pi. So let's solve this normally, just like we did the last one. We'll subtract 3 pi from both sides, which will give us, let's see, 2x equals, well, 3 pi minus 3 pi will give us 0. So dividing both sides by 2, that gets us that x equals 0 divided by 2. Well, 0 divided by anything is 0. So let's continue along. Let's go ahead and put our asymptotes on our graph, which are at, let's see, negative 3 pi, and at 0. This won't be quite as pretty for getting our halfway point. Our halfway point will be right here in the middle, will be where we hit the x-axis. Well, what's the halfway point between 0 and negative 3 pi? Well, 0 added to negative 3 pi divided by 2 would give us negative 3 pi over 2 as our halfway point. Remember, to find the middle, you can just add two things up and divide by 2. And then we have to find the middle of those two and those two to find our other two quarter points, and to also talk about our highest point and our lowest point at those quarter points, which, be careful, we've got an a that is actually a negative on this graph. So we've got an a of negative 2 on a tangent graph. So the tangent graph is normally always decreasing. However, the negative in front of it's going to make it so that it's always decreasing. So our first quarter point will actually be starting up at the highest value and then working its way down, again because of that negative. But that's going to be the shape that we'll have. Then you would just need to find the two values of the quarter points, which if you weren't sure, again, you could do those off to the side. Well, the first quarter point is between 0 and negative 3 pi over 2, so you'd say 0 plus negative 3 pi over 2 divided by 2, which would, well, 0 added to anything is just negative 3 pi over 2 will stay the same, divided by 2. Remember that this will turn into multiplication of the reciprocal, negative 3 pi over 2 times 1/2, which will give us negative 3 pi over 4. And on the other side, if you wanted to find the other quarter point, you could by taking, it's between negative 3 pi over 2 and negative 3 pi, adding them up and dividing by 2. But then you'd have to get a common denominator of 2, which would turn this into a negative 6 pi, which on top would give us a negative 9 pi over 2, divided by the 2 on the bottom, which would again turn into division, would turn into multiplying by the reciprocal, would get you a negative 9 pi over 4. But that would give you one period. If you wanted 2 periods, you'd have to basically do the same picture on the right-hand side. That would go all the way from 0 to positive 3 pi. But what's nice is at least you'd have the exact same values for your middle and for your middle point, which would be a positive 3 pi over 2, and your quarter points, which would be a 9 pi over 4, and a 3 pi over 4. I'm sorry, there was supposed to be a negative on the one over here on the left. And you would do the exact same picture where you start out on top and you work your way decreasing. Again, I do know it's a tangent graph, and it ends up looking like a cotangent graph. And the reason why it ends up looking like a cotangent graph is because of that negative out in front of the tangent graph flips it upside down, which will turn the tangent graph from always increasing to always decreasing. And I always like to let myself know and remember that these graphs keep on going left and right, so I always do a dot, dot, dot. But it's up to you. But that's how you're going to do your tangent, cotangent graphs. So at this point, as a quick summary, we have graphed sine, cosine, tangent, and cotangent. So the only two graphs we have not taken a look at are secant and cosecant, which, guess what? That's what we're going to do in the next section.